Inside a Cheatham County courtroom, a team of prosecutors laid out a disturbing series of events describing alleged repeated abuse a little boy suffered at the hands of his father's live-in girlfriend.
Yeah, Bob and Haley, the details are brutal, and the judge in this case said he's never seen any crime just like this. The prosecutors in this case described the horrific scene from 79-day video evidence of Shannon Lee Elliott torturing and killing 5-year-old Turner Simpkins, her boyfriend's son. In July of last year, police went to Elliott's home and found 5-year-old Turner not breathing. They say he had extensive bruising, lacerations, and bite marks.
I've sentenced people to life in prison and other more serious situations in the form of a death penalty case that I've had, and I've never heard more horrific statement of facts in my entire life.
For 79 days, security cameras coldly recorded the most brutal crime against innocents. Heartless technology documented every hit, every scream, every drop of blood from a 5-year-old boy. For 79 days, undeniable evidence piled up on servers. Every frame was a chance to stop the torture. But security monitors stayed unwatched. The extended family that once surrounded Turner with an ocean of love didn't notice his pain. His loving father, for whom his son was a huge daddy's boy, chose silence. Little Turner's story is incredibly tragic because a child who could really be saved was left alone with a monster. And the 5-year-old boy had no chance to survive against an adult world that betrayed him. Friends, while you're watching this story, please write in the comments what time of day you're watching this video. This will help me understand when it's better to publish such materials. And please don't forget to subscribe to the channel so more people learn this important story. On June 18, 2018, in a Nashville, Tennessee hospital, a boy was born who was destined to become the center of the universe for an entire family. Turner Wayne Simpkins was born to Austin Simpkins and Sierra Ford, and from the first second became someone everyone would adore. The kindest, gentlest little person you could ever meet, that's how Turner's family described him. He had the clearest blue eyes that sparkled with curiosity about the whole world. When Turner laughed, and he laughed often, their entire home in Chapmansboro filled with joy. Turner grew up in a big, loving family. He had an older brother, Maverick, who became his best friend and protector. In countless family photos, they're always together, hugging on the couch, playing in the yard, sleeping in the same bed. Maverick was the one Turner ran to when something went wrong, who could always comfort him. The house on Poplar Ridge Road in Chapmansboro was a children's paradise. On the deck hung swings that Austin installed specially for his sons. The boys could spend hours swinging on them, singing songs from Mickey Mouse Clubhouse or pretending to be superheroes saving the world. Turner loved Batman, Catboy from PJ Masks, Sonic, and Mickey Mouse. His room was filled with toys of these characters. He often put on a superhero costume and ran around the house, waving his arms as if he was flying to save someone. Turner was a huge daddy's boy. Austin wasn't just a father to him, he was his best friend, hero, center of the universe. They spent endless hours together, riding boats, splashing in the backyard pool, going to the beach with the whole family. Austin taught his son to swim, carried him on his shoulders, played superheroes with him. Austin had a dog that also became part of Turner's childhood games, a faithful companion of their family adventures. In Turner's eyes, when he looked at his father, there was boundless love and trust. Sierra, Turner's mom, was also an important part of his life. Even after breaking up with Austin, she regularly saw her sons. Turner happily spent wonderful weekends with her. Somewhere in early 2022, a woman appeared in Austin's life who would forever change his family's fate. Shannon Lee Elliott, 24 years old, from Springfield, seemed like an ordinary young woman at first glance. Shannon got a job at a small manufacturing company, not knowing about the video surveillance system that would become the key to exposing her future crimes. These cameras, which she didn't know about, would soon become silent witnesses to the most horrifying acts of violence against a defenseless child. When Shannon moved into the house on Poplar Ridge Road, Turner first treated her with usual childish openness. He was raised to be polite to adults, to trust them, to obey them. But something about Shannon was wrong. Of all the children in the house, she somehow singled out Turner as the target of her unexplained hatred. Maybe his closeness with Austin irritated her. Maybe in his innocent face she saw something that awakened her darkest instincts. At home, Austin noticed that his son became quieter. Sometimes he asked questions, but Shannon was always ready with explanations. Fell off the swings, bumped into Maverick while playing, jumped off the couch badly, was playing with the dog. Austin wanted to believe her. It was easier than facing the truth. On May 2, 2023, Shannon Elliott made a decision that sealed Turner's fate. She began regularly taking him to work with her so as not to leave him home unsupervised. At first glance, this could seem like a caring act. In reality, it was the beginning of the most methodical and cruel destruction of an innocent child. On the first day, cameras recorded a moment that changed everything. Shannon hit Turner. But for Turner, this was no longer unexpected. Such things had already happened at home. The horror was different. Now he understood that there was nowhere to run from Shannon. At home, he could hide with Maverick. With Dad, run outside. But here, at Shannon's work, he was completely in her power. Nobody nearby who could protect him. Just him and her during her shift. Turner cried not from pain, but from the terrifying understanding of his helplessness. In his 5-year-old world, safety finally collapsed. There was no place left to hide. On June 18, 2023, Turner turned 5 years old. Shannon carefully made sure that by this day there were no visible signs of violence on the child's body. She knew that Sierra would carefully examine her son, hug him, bathe him. On this day, Turner went to his mom's to celebrate. Perhaps these were the last truly happy hours of his life. Sierra saw her boy smiling, playing, laughing. She couldn't know that inside he had already begun to change. After the birthday, something dramatically changed in Shannon's behavior. As if successfully deceiving Sierra gave her confidence that she could go further. Caution disappeared. Real violence began. With each day, the cruelty grew. Shannon hit Turner with her fists in the face and body. Each blow echoed with pain in his small body. Turner learned to cover his face with his hands, trying to protect himself, but his tiny palms couldn't stop an adult's rage. Shannon kicked him with such force that he flew several feet. Turner, weighing about 40 pounds, flew through the air like a rag doll, hitting walls and furniture. Each fall brought new bruises, new cuts, new pain. But the most terrifying was suffocation. When Turner screamed from pain, and how could a 5-year-old not scream, Shannon squeezed his throat with her hands or covered his mouth and nose with her palm, not letting him breathe. She looked into his eyes filled with panic and pleas for mercy and continued squeezing his neck. Turner gasped for air. His little hands unsuccessfully tried to pull Shannon's hands away from his throat. Black spots began dancing before his eyes. His lungs burned from lack of oxygen. Shannon didn't stop until the child stopped resisting, balancing on the edge between life and death. Shannon bit Turner with animal fury. Her teeth broke through his tender child's skin, leaving deep wounds. The autopsy would later find multiple bite marks all over the child's body, evidence of sadistic enjoyment of his pain. These weren't impulsive bites in a moment of anger. Shannon methodically bit various parts of Turner's body, like a predator devouring its prey. Neck, arms, legs, back. Each bite left a bleeding wound and psychological trauma that was even deeper than the physical pain. Turner began to fear Shannon's approach. When she came near him, his little body tensed in anticipation of pain. The 5-year-old child developed victim instincts that should only exist in adults in war zones. Physical violence was only part of Turner's nightmare. Shannon used hunger as a punishment tool. The 5-year-old boy, whose body desperately needed nutrition for growth and recovery from injuries, was systematically deprived of food. Turner went to bed hungry, his stomach cramping with pain. He woke up hungry, dreaming of family dinners when the whole family gathered together, but there was no food. There was only pain, fear, and emptiness in his stomach. Malnutrition made him weak, unable to resist further torture. His immune system couldn't cope with constant injuries. Wounds healed slowly, leaving scars on his small body and soul. Turner no longer greeted mornings with joyful shouts. Now each awakening brought fear of a new day of horror. He no longer played superheroes. He no longer sang songs from cartoons. Turner learned to be invisible, quiet, unnoticeable, anything to not attract Shannon's attention. But nothing helped. Shannon found reasons for violence in any action Turner took. If he cried, he was punished for noise. If he was silent, he was punished for being sullen. There was no way to avoid pain. While all this was happening, Austin Simpkins, Turner's father, the man who should have been his main protector, was betraying his son in the most horrible way. Austin saw the bruises. Austin heard the screams. Austin knew. Every shift Shannon took the boy to work with her, and every time Turner came home with new injuries. Turner probably tried to tell his dad what was happening to him. Maybe he showed bruises, cried, asked for protection. But Austin chose Shannon over his own son. Worse than that, Austin didn't just ignore the violence. He actively helped hide it. He didn't take Turner to a doctor about his injuries. He didn't call Child Protective Services. He didn't take the child away from Shannon. Turner loved his dad unconditionally. Every time Shannon hurt him, he mentally called for his father's help. But Dad didn't come. Dad betrayed him. July 19, 2023. On surveillance footage, Turner sits in a corner of Shannon's workplace, practically motionless. 79 days of systematic torture had turned a healthy, happy boy into a tormented shadow. His once bright eyes no longer expressed pain or fear. There was only emptiness in them. The 5-year-old child had already mentally left this world, though his body still clung to life. Turner could barely stand. His clothes hung on his emaciated body. Despite the summer, he was dressed in a long-sleeved shirt and pants to hide the beatings. But Shannon Elliott wasn't finished with him yet. There were still 4 more days ahead, 4 days that would become the last in Turner Wayne Simpkins' short life. What happened in those last days between July 19th and July 23rd remains one of the darkest secrets of this case. The cameras no longer recorded, but Turner's body condition when found tells a horrifying story that the violence not only didn't stop, but even intensified. Turner spent that weekend at home on Poplar Ridge Road, in the same house where he once swung on swings and laughed with his brother Maverick. But now these walls became witnesses to his final hours of agony. The medical examiner would later determine that many of the most serious injuries were inflicted during these last days. The internal bleeding that ultimately caused death was the result of blows so powerful they tore apart a 5-year-old child's internal organs. Austin Simpkins was home all these days. It's impossible to prove what exactly he saw of what Shannon was doing to his son, but it's completely obvious that he did nothing to stop it. On that last day, Turner could barely move. Every breath caused pain. Every movement brought a new wave of suffering. At some point, Shannon Elliott delivered the blows that became fatal. Perhaps in his final moments, his little mind remembered happy days, playing in the yard, his beloved superheroes Batman and Sonic, times when he was just a carefree child. On July 23, 2023, little Turner Wayne Simpkins' heart stopped forever. He was only 5 years, 1 month, and 5 days old. When first responders arrived at Poplar Ridge Road, they discovered a scene that changed them forever. Turner lay on the side deck of the house, cold and lifeless. His body temperature had dropped to 86 degrees. Bruises covered every inch of his skin, cuts and torn wounds gaped on his arms and legs, and bite marks were visible all over his body from head to toe. Shannon immediately began weaving a web of lies. She told responders that Turner fell out of a moving car after visiting his mother. But investigators saw inconsistencies. The car seat from which Turner supposedly fell was undamaged, and a drink cup in the seat's cup holder still contained liquid. Turner's injuries didn't match a car accident. Bite marks from human teeth are impossible to get from falling. When the medical examiner began the autopsy of Turner Wayne Simpkins' body, even this experienced professional was shocked by what he saw. Official cause of death: multiple acute injuries from blunt objects and malnutrition. The death was classified as homicide, but these dry medical terms couldn't convey the entire horrifying reality. Injuries found during autopsy: extensive bruises all over the body, multiple cuts and torn wounds, bite marks from human teeth, some old, others fresh, internal bleeding in the abdominal cavity, signs of chronic malnutrition and dehydration. The most shocking thing: Turner didn't die from one fatal blow, but from the accumulated effect of months of continuous violence. His body simply couldn't endure constant trauma anymore. On July 29, 2023, the family gathered for the funeral of their little angel. His parents, older brother Maverick, cousins, grandmothers, grandfathers, everyone who loved Turner and couldn't save him. The extended family didn't yet know about Shannon's role. Months of investigation brought only fragments of truth. Tennessee Bureau of Investigation detectives painstakingly gathered evidence, witness statements, medical conclusions, contradictory explanations from Shannon Elliott and Austin Simpkins. But every lead hit a dead end. Every piece of evidence could be disputed. The case could have dragged on for years, and Shannon Elliott could have been released on bail. Turner could have become another sad statistic, another accident that nobody could prove. But a breakthrough happened when detectives discovered something Shannon Elliott didn't even suspect. The breakthrough came when Tennessee Bureau of Investigation detectives discovered a video surveillance system at Shannon's workplace, a system that even the owners and security had forgotten about. Old cameras, long unwatched by anyone, hung silently under the ceiling. But the heartless technology meticulously documented hell, recording every moment of horror on hard drives. 79 days of documented hell. 79 days of systematic torture of a 5-year-old child. On the recordings, Shannon systematically beat, kicked, strangled, bit, and threw Turner. Out of 79 days of filming, 40 days recorded active physical violence. More than half the time Turner was being tortured just meters away from people who could have saved him. Every frame of these recordings became proof that Turner Wayne Simpkins endured hell that's hard to even imagine. On March 4, 2024, the Cheatham County Grand Jury charged 26-year-old Shannon Elliott with 2 counts of first-degree murder and 3 counts of child abuse. That same evening, she was arrested and jailed in Cheatham County Jail. Bail was set at $1 million, an amount that reflected the seriousness of her crimes. On July 30, 2024, Shannon Elliott stated that she would not contest the charges. When prosecutors began reading the details of the crimes, deadly silence fell over the courtroom. The evidence presentation lasted more than 20 minutes, 20 minutes of unimaginable horror. Judge David Wolf, who had seen thousands of cases in his career, was shocked.
I've sentenced people to life in prison and other more serious situations in the form of a death penalty case that I've had, and I've never heard more horrific statement of facts in my entire life.
Shannon Elliott was sentenced to life in prison with the possibility of parole after 51 years. On January 6, 2025, another bombshell hit this case. 29-year-old Austin Gordon Simpkins was arrested on charges of child neglect and child abuse. The investigation showed that Austin knew about the violence against his son for several months, but took no action to stop it. The man who should have been Turner's main protector instead became an accomplice to his murder. Turner was a huge daddy's boy who loved his father unconditionally, and this father betrayed him in the most horrible way. Turner's tragedy highlights catastrophic failures in child protection systems. 79 days of torture of a 5-year-old child happened at a workplace near Shannon's colleagues, who didn't see the obvious. A healthcare system that never saw his injuries. Tennessee's Child Protective Services that stayed completely on the sidelines. But the main failure happened at home. Turner's father became an accomplice to his murder. Turner Simpkins is a reminder that evil hides behind a facade of normalcy. Shannon Elliott got life in prison. Austin Simpkins awaits trial. But justice for Turner isn't just punishing the guilty. It's protecting other children from such a fate. Turner's story ended on July 23, 2023. His legacy is just beginning. Share this video with your loved ones. Here we are in 2025, and evil continues to harm innocent children, as if we're still in the dark Middle Ages. Rest in peace, little Angel Turner.
Near the West Haven home, where authorities say a 12-year-old boy died from neglect and abuse. They're not shocked by the accusations against this family.
It honestly hurts because we are our kids' a safe place. They should come to us and talk to us and tell us what's going on, and he did not have that.
I just feel like we have failed him.
The story began with a demonic woman who desired a man. Strong, attractive, with a steady income, he was several years younger than her and became her obsession. She hated his wife and strived to outdo her in everything. Through cunning, flattery, and any means necessary, she separated him from his family until she captured him completely. She didn't expect that the man would bring 3 small children with him. Her hatred for the mother of these innocent children took on a new form. 10 years of life in their stepmother's house forever broke the destinies of these children. She twisted the soul of the eldest, left terrible mental scars in the soul of the middle child, and with a particularly perverted cruelty slowly killed the youngest. 8 months have passed since little Gavin's heart stopped forever. Finally, in March of 2025, all 3 adults involved in his death appeared in court. Each of them was aware of what was happening and had the power to stop the nightmare that was killing little Gavin. Each could have given him a glass of water, a piece of bread, or simply said enough. But these monsters had no mercy for the defenseless dying boy. We hope that justice will be just as merciless to them. Friends, while you're watching this story, please write in the comments what time of day you're viewing this video. This will help me understand when it's best to publish similar materials. And please don't forget to subscribe to the channel so more people can learn about this story. In the quiet town of Ogden, Utah, the story of Gavin Peterson began on January 15, 2012. He was born to Melanie and Shane Peterson, who already had 2 children, an older son Tyler, a boy with autism, and a daughter Melanie. Gavin was a happy child with an infectious laugh and smile. Smart and curious, he loved science and everything related to space. Like any boy his age, he loved Pokemon and Nintendo Switch, and his favorite color was blue. But the family's well-being turned out to be an illusion. In August of 2014, an incident occurred that changed the fate of all 3 children. A police officer found 2-year-old Gavin wandering unsupervised on the street near his home. During a search of the house, the officer found a pipe containing a prohibited substance lying on an open shelf in the living room. Melanie has been charged with crimes related to illegal substances and the creation of a dangerous environment for children. By November of 2014, Melanie pled guilty to the charges. She was sentenced to 100 hours of community service and a $600 fine. She was also ordered to undergo a mental health evaluation and treatment, a parenting program, and substance abuse treatment. During this period, she lost custody of all 3 children. Melanie took the court's orders seriously. By February of 2015, she had completed all her community service hours and paid the fine. By July of the same year, she had officially completed mental health and substance abuse treatment programs. She had a stable job. She did everything possible to get her children back. I went through everything I was supposed to, as one should, Melanie later recounted. I took all the classes for my own mental health. It's important to recognize when you need help. I really did everything I could to better myself and be a mom to my kids. Despite all her efforts, Melanie was never able to regain custody of her children. By then, Shane had married Nicole Scott, a woman who became obsessed with him and hated everything that connected him to his ex-wife, including the 3 children. Nicole was calculating and cunning. She understood that she couldn't openly show hatred toward her husband's children, so she acted methodically. First, she turned her attention to Tyler, the eldest son. Knowing about his autism, she used his suggestibility to her advantage. She gave him privileges that the other children were denied and gradually turned him against his mother and younger siblings. Tyler became her ally in abusing his own brother and sister. Tyler did whatever they wanted, Melanie later recounted. They told him it was okay to beat me. I don't know what was going through his head. It's just hard knowing that he was my best friend. Then it was Melanie's turn. As the girl grew older and increasingly resembled her mother, Nicole's hatred grew. By 2018, when Melanie was about 13, her life turned into a living hell.
They manipulated me into hating my mom. She called me names every day.
Nicole installed surveillance cameras in the bedrooms, watching the stepdaughter's every move. Nicole tracked my every move with a camera, Melanie remembered. At one point, Nicole tied her to the bed with zip ties.
They would tie my ankles, and she said if I moved, she'd beat me over and over again.
According to Melanie, Nicole regularly beat her with a belt or a wooden spoon. Girl had to ask permission for everything, to take a shower, use the bathroom, or brush her hair. I found a comb on the bathroom floor, and I started combing my hair with it, and she found out about it and got really mad at me. And that's what eventually led to her shaving my head, Melanie recalled. 6-year-old Gavin, returning from school that day, froze in the doorway when he saw his sister. His childish eyes widened in incomprehension. "It's me, Gavi," whispered Melanie, trying to smile, but her lips trembled and tears flowed down her cheeks. She reached out to him, but the boy took a step back, still not believing. "See, even your brother thinks you're ugly," Nicole said with satisfaction from behind. Tyler, watching the whole scene from the corner of the room, laughed loudly. This was exactly what Nicole wanted, to destroy the connection between the children, to deprive them of the ability to support each other. Nicole also forced Melanie to work constantly. "I was their maid. They would have me outside from morning until dinner time," she recounted. The girl spent long hours doing yard work at their house and at her great-grandmother's house across the street. Even with such physical demands, Melanie received minimal food.
At that time, I was mostly focused on surviving. They would starve me until I was really skinny.
The only food the brother and sister were given was bread smeared with mustard. Nicole added mustard on purpose because the children hated it. So the kids had to earn the poor food as a reward, but they only had to eat what they didn't like. In March of 2019, a concerned friend of the girl reported possible abuse at school, and a DCFS worker was brought in.
They basically told me that they couldn't do anything. I told them that I was deathly terrified to go back with them.
Instead of decisive action, according to Melanie, a safety plan was created, according to which Nicole should not be left alone with her. This intervention only intensified Nicole's anger. In April of 2019, Melanie tried to run away to her mother, but was caught by Shane and Nicole near a gas station. "She strangled me in the back seat of my dad's car," Melanie recounted. "I thought I was going to die."
I remember her telling me she wanted to kill me.
After this incident, Melanie was not allowed to attend school for the last 2 weeks of the school year. Dark, winding bruises remained on her neck, silent witnesses to the monstrous violence. But Nicole was smart and calculating. "You disappointed us. You'll stay home for 2 weeks to think about your behavior." The girl lowered her head in shame, thinking that being deprived of school was punishment for trying to escape. She was made to believe that she was bad, that she didn't deserve to learn like other children. Only later did she realize that it was all part of a cruel game. The bruises on her neck couldn't be hidden by clothing, and teachers and school staff would have asked uncomfortable questions. Thus, the cunning stepmother turned the need to hide signs of violence into yet another psychological weapon against her stepdaughter. Milani's fate changed in May of 2019. The girl was mowing the lawn and accidentally ran over a sprinkler with the lawnmower, breaking it. This happened on Saturday, on Memorial Day weekend. Nicole was asleep at the time, but Shane was awake and told the girl to get in the car so they could buy a replacement. Instead, to Milani's surprise, he drove her to her mother's house. Shane left without saying a word. It would later become apparent that her father's impulsive act likely saved Milani's life. Seeing her emaciated daughter with a shaved head, Melanie was shocked. That same day, Milani told her mother about the abuse she had endured. Melanie immediately called the Weber County Sheriff's Office and was referred to DCFS. After the holiday weekend, Milani's met with a social worker. She was also interviewed by a sheriff's deputy. But no investigation by the authorities followed. By November of 2019, Melanie finally won the right to see Gavin every other weekend. During these visits, she anxiously noticed signs of malnutrition in her son. In February of 2020, during one of her rare visits, Melanie photographed Gavin without a shirt. His ribs clearly protruded under his pale skin. His face was haggard.
The last time I saw him, I took a picture of him because he looked so skinny.
The mother's concern turned into panic. She decided to document her son's condition and approach Child Protective Services with evidence. But when Shane and Nicole found out about the photos, their reaction was swift. They filed a false complaint with DCFS against Melanie, which suspended all visits until a decision was made. The process dragged on due to the beginning of the COVID-19 pandemic.
And it's not that I didn't try. No one helped me.
February of 2020 was the last time she saw her son alive. With his sister gone from the house and contact with his mother lost, Gavin was left alone with his tormentors. Now all of Nicole's fury fell on him. With each day, the conditions of his existence became more and more unbearable. School remained the only refuge where the boy could at least temporarily escape from the nightmare of his home hell. In the 2021 to 2022 school year, teachers couldn't help but notice the sad changes in Gavin. Always small for his age, he now looked painfully thin. His eyes, once shining with curiosity, had dimmed and sunken. His hair was cut short, just like his sister's once was. He often missed classes. A school cafeteria worker named Jan took the boy's fate especially to heart. She noticed Gavin's strange behavior. He would take a cup of water, approach the trash can where students threw away leftover food, and secretly retrieve uneaten pieces. The realization that a child was so hungry that he was willing to eat from the garbage broke the woman's heart. Jan and another cafeteria employee began secretly paying for Gavin's lunches. They were forbidden to do this. The school administration insisted that families experiencing financial difficulties should fill out a form for free meals. But the problem wasn't poverty. Shane had a stable income. Nicole was deliberately starving the boy. When she found out that money had appeared in Gavin's school account, her fury knew no bounds. She stormed into the school and demanded that they stop feeding her stepson, stating that if she wanted him to have lunch at school, she would pay for it herself. A few days after this incident, Gavin came to school with a chipped tooth. The school staff assumed the boy had simply fallen, but it later became clear that it was the result of abuse at home. By the 2022 to 2023 school year, when Gavin was in 5th grade, the emaciation reached a critical point. Driven to desperation by hunger, he began stealing other children's breakfasts. Teachers and even classmates, seeing his condition, shared their food with him. Adults could no longer officially buy him lunches, but secretly gave him part of their own. For several months, cafeteria workers tried to draw attention to the situation. At first, they were told that the principal should file the report. They reported their concerns to management, but nothing changed. Then they personally called DCFS, but again to no avail. In August of 2023, what everyone who knew Gavin feared happened. Nicole completely removed him from school, claiming she was transferring him to homeschooling. For the boy who loved learning and found in school the only refuge from his home hell, this became a final sentence. Now he was completely isolated, deprived of the opportunity to receive any food and communicate with other people. After Gavin was taken out of school, no one saw or heard from him for almost a year. None of the numerous reports to Child Protective Services led to an inspection. No officials bothered to make sure that the homeschooled boy was actually receiving an education. The system designed to protect children failed Gavin again and again. Jan, as well as the school staff, often thought of Gavin and hoped that perhaps he had been taken away from that horrible family and placed in a safe place. They could get no information about the boy and clung to this faint hope.
I have been a mess. I think the system has failed him. I could have packed his lunch for school. I could have pushed the issue harder. I just feel like I could have done more.
But reality was much more frightening than any fantasy. Behind the closed doors of the Peterson home, a real nightmare was unfolding. Gavin was kept in an empty, cold room with almost no furniture. There was no carpet or bedding in the room. As he grew weaker, he sometimes could not get to the bed. He slept directly on the bare floor. The boy was forced to wear diapers, which weren't changed for long periods. He had no access to a toilet, couldn't wash himself, and didn't receive necessary medical care. Gavin's diet was reduced to an absolute minimum, 1/3 of a cup of water and a piece of bread smeared with mustard per day. Sometimes he wasn't fed at all. He was also regularly beaten, including with a piñata bat that Nicole kept specifically for punishments. Like his sister once, he was constantly monitored through cameras. Any movement, any attempt to find food or water was severely punished. With each passing day, life was leaving the once bright and inquisitive boy. His body slowly deteriorated from malnutrition, and more sores appeared on his body that did not heal. The system did not have the resources to sustain life in the body, and his spirit was broken by endless humiliation and beatings. On July 9, 2024, a call to 911 reported a child not breathing at the Peterson home. Before emergency services arrived, Tyler had texted his father asking what to do about his brother's condition. Paramedics found Gavin on the bathroom floor, his skin cold to the touch. His body was already showing signs of rigor mortis. Shane and Nicole claimed he had been vomiting for days but was never taken to a doctor. They said Nicole had found him covered in vomit and helped him to the shower. It was too late. At the hospital, doctors pronounced Gavin dead, shocked beyond words by his condition. Medical personnel, hardened by years of emergency room tragedies, were moved to tears. The attending physician later testified he had never seen such severe malnutrition in his 20-year career outside of war zones and famine areas. Gavin's body told the story of prolonged, deliberate torture. At 12 years old, he weighed less than 60 pounds, the weight of an average 6-year-old. His bones jutted painfully through paper-thin skin. His stomach was concave, his ribcage grotesquely prominent. The medical examiner noted his muscles had begun to waste away, his body cannibalizing itself in a desperate attempt to survive. His hair was falling out in patches. Pressure sores covered his back and hips from lying on a hard floor. His fingers on his hands were twisted from swollen joints and torn bloody. Multiple ribs showed evidence of previous fractures that had healed improperly without medical care. His teeth were damaged, some broken completely. Dark bruises in various stages of healing covered his body, particularly around his wrists and ankles where he had been restrained. The medical examiner's verdict was unequivocal: death by starvation, signs of physical abuse. In a country where obesity is considered a national crisis, where food banks serve the homeless, where restaurants discard tons of food daily, this child from a middle-class family had starved to death. This stark contradiction made Gavin's case even more shocking and incomprehensible. He didn't die from lack of resources, but from deliberate cruelty in a world of prosperity. The police investigation revealed horrors beyond imagination. Gavin had been kept in an empty room with surveillance cameras monitoring his every move. He slept on a bare floor without bedding. He wore unchanged diapers. His daily meal consisted of 1/3 cup of water and a piece of bread smeared with mustard, a condiment he hated. Text messages between Shane, Nicole, and Tyler revealed casual discussions about Gavin's punishments, beating him with a piñata stick, locking his door from the outside, and deliberately withholding food and water. Surveillance footage showed the skeletal boy curled up on the bare floor, too weak to move. When police searched the home, they found that Tyler had hastily removed cameras from Gavin's room, hiding them in the backyard shed. A prohibited substance were also discovered, adding to Nicole's charges. Most disturbing was Shane's complete emotional detachment from his son. His co-workers didn't even know Gavin existed, though photos of his child with Nicole proudly decorated his desk at work. All three were arrested and charged with child abuse homicide, aggravated child abuse, and child endangerment. Nicole faced additional charges of obstruction of justice and possession of illegal substances. Gavin's death shocked his hometown and the entire state. His story became a grim spotlight on a system that had failed him at every turn. Despite at least 7 reports to Child Protective Services over the years, no effective intervention had ever occurred. His mother, Melanie, heartbroken, spoke publicly.
I never would imagine that Shane would let this happen, to starve him and let him die.
On July 23rd, a memorial vigil was held for Gavin, drawing a large crowd of community members, many of whom had never met him but were deeply moved by his story. The gathering became not just a mourning for one child, but a collective expression of grief over a system that failed him. Despite this outpouring of support, complications emerged with Gavin's actual burial. Bureaucratic and legal questions about burial rights created obstacles. There was confusion about who had the authority to make final decisions about where to bury Gavin. Only after Shane Peterson's arrest were his parental rights officially terminated, allowing Melanie's family to begin the legal process of obtaining the right to bury Gavin next to his grandfather. By March 25, 2025, the legal cases moved forward. Shane Peterson pled guilty to all charges in exchange for avoiding the death penalty. His sentencing, scheduled for May 6th, could range from 8 years to life imprisonment. Tyler, whose autism and mental health conditions complicated his case, was released to his mother's custody pending psychiatric evaluation. The court would decide on April whether treatment might replace imprisonment. Only Nicole Scott maintained her innocence despite overwhelming evidence. Appearing stoically in prison clothes, her preliminary hearing was set for June 17th. Meanwhile, legislators debated system reforms. Representative Christine Watkins proposed a bill giving social workers authority to obtain warrants to check on children when multiple abuse reports existed. Yet by March, this bill remained stalled in committee. Gavin Peterson died as invisibly as he had lived his final year, unseen, unheard, erased. A boy who once loved science and Pokemon, who had an infectious laugh, and whose favorite color was blue, vanished from existence through calculated cruelty. His story stands as a stark reminder that protecting children isn't just a moral imperative, but a societal obligation. In the quiet town of West Haven, a child disappeared before anyone could save him, leaving behind only photographs and unanswered questions about how we fail our most vulnerable citizens. Friends, if you are as touched by Gavin's story as I am, please give it a like and spread the word. A little angel must be remembered. Rest in peace, little Gavin. Dear friends, we will continue with video footage from the courtroom of the Shane and Tyler Peterson trial.
Peterson decided to move this case forward and to resolve the case. I'm first going to hear from Mr. Whittison. He's going to put what the negotiation is on the record, and then I'm going to have some questions for you as we go through that, and make sure that everything's in order before I take any change of plea from you, okay? All right. Mr. Whittison?
Thank you, Your Honor. We are currently scheduled for a preliminary hearing in this matter. Mr. Peterson today is prepared to waive his preliminary hearing and enter guilty pleas. Mr. Peterson is prepared to plead guilty to counts 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 of the amended information. And the negotiation with the state is that the state has agreed not to amend the child abuse homicide charge to murder or aggravated murder. And furthermore, the state and the defendant have agreed to recommend consecutive sentencing and imposition of the indeterminate prison terms at the time of sentencing. We have prepared a plea affidavit and reviewed that with Mr. Peterson in full. I provided a copy to the state and to the court. The state has affixed its signature, and I've affixed my signature. Mr. Peterson is prepared to sign.
All right. Is that the state's agreement?
It is, Your Honor. I think before we proceed with the waiver, we probably should arraign him on the amended information.
And you've received a copy of the amended information?
I have, and I've also gone over that with Mr. Peterson. We'll waive formal reading of the information.
All right. Mr. Peterson, that amended information changes the counts that were originally filed. There's the same counts I understand that you're going to plead to today. And so let me identify what those are. Count 1 is child abuse homicide on a reckless basis, first-degree felony carrying a maximum sentence of 5 years and maybe up to life. Counts 2 is aggravated child abuse. It's a second-degree felony, carries a maximum sentence of 1 to 15 years in the Utah State Prison and or a $10,000 fine. Count 3 is aggravated child abuse, also a second-degree felony, carrying same maximum sentence of 1 to 15 in the Utah State Prison and a fine of up to $10,000. Count 4 is a little bit different. It is aggravated child abuse, is a second-degree felony, but with the initials of a minor child of MP, carries a maximum sentence of 1 to 15 years in the Utah State Prison and a fine of $10,000. And then count 5 is endangerment of a child. That's a third-degree felony, carrying a maximum sentence of up to 5 years in the Utah State Prison and a $5,000 fine. All of those charges carry the same offense dates, being arraigned between January 1st of 2022 and July 9th of 2024. And all of those charges can run concurrent or consecutive with each other or with any other sentence that you may be serving time on. Now, you have a right to a preliminary hearing on all of those charges. The state would have to put on evidence to show that a crime has been committed and that there is evidence to support each of the elements of each of those charges. That hearing currently is scheduled for May, and you're entitled to that, or you can waive that hearing and go forward with the negotiated plea that we've discussed here today. Do you want to waive your right to a preliminary hearing?
Yes, Your Honor.
And you've talked with counsel about that?
That is correct.
All right, then I will accept that waiver and find that it's been knowingly and intentionally made. And the state consents to the waiver?
We do, Your Honor.
All right. Mr. Peterson, I want to make sure that you're going forward with your eyes wide open, recognize the maximum sentences, and really in terms of whether or not there's a prison sentence here, that you know that prison term will be imposed by the court based on the negotiation and based on what's happened here, although we're going to wait and go forward with sentencing. I just want to make sure that you understand what your maximum risk is if you plead guilty here today. Do you understand that?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, well, I think the state's prepared the statement in advance of plea. Maybe it was Mr. Whittison and Mr. Bichelle. But that document outlines the rights that you have and the waivers the court would need to accept in order for you to plead guilty today. Did you read that with your counsel?
Yes, Your Honor.
And did you understand it?
Yes, Your Honor.
And do you have any questions about it before we proceed?
No, Your Honor.
All right, as part of this document, first of all, it outlined the charges that you're pleading to, the maximum sentences that go along with those. It identifies what the elements of the charges are, and then there's a page and a half that outlines the factual basis for these pleas. Are the facts as they are outlined in this document, are they true?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, and then I'll rely on that for a factual basis. It also, Mr. Peterson, indicates what the plea agreement is here, and is there anything that you're counting on, that you're relying on, that is not included in this document or that we haven't talked about here in court today?
No, Your Honor.
All right, then I will acknowledge that. And as I said, I have final say in terms of whether or not these run concurrent or consecutive or how the sentences are imposed, but otherwise I will accept the plea negotiation. Finally, I think I looked at this. It does have the current language, the brand new language as it relates to withdrawing your plea. So that is current and I don't need to go over that. But do you have any other questions for your counsel or for me before I have you sign this document and before we take your plea today?
No, Your Honor.
All right. You are satisfied with the counsel that you've been given by your two attorneys?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right. Do you feel like you're thinking clearly today?
Yes, Your Honor.
And are you under the influence of any alcohol or controlled substances or medication that would make it difficult or impair your ability to make an informed decision today?
No, Your Honor.
All right. Mr. Whittison, any concerns on your part as his attorney?
No, none, Your Honor.
All right. And then, Mr. Peterson, if you're ready to go forward with your plea, I'll have you sign that statement in advance of plea. The attorneys will sign it as well. Once it's been signed by them, I will affix my signature to it, incorporate it into the record, including any oral statements that have been made here in court today. All right, Mr. Peterson, then to the amended information, count 1, child abuse homicide as a first-degree felony. How do you plead to that charge?
Guilty.
And to count 2, aggravated child abuse as a second-degree felony. How do you plead to that charge?
Guilty.
To count 3, aggravated child abuse as a second-degree felony. How do you plead to that charge?
Guilty.
And to count 4, aggravated child abuse with the initials of a minor MP. How do you plead to that charge?
Guilty.
And to count 5, endangerment as a child as a third-degree felony. How do you plead to that charge?
Guilty.
I'll accept those pleas, find that they've been knowingly and intentionally made, and I will enter the convictions for all 5 of those pleas. I do want a pre-sentence investigation report to be prepared by adult probation and parole. I think it's important, Mr. Peterson, although the fact that you're going to go to prison is a given in this case, I do think it's important that, first of all, you have the benefit of reviewing the PSI that's prepared, and you have counsel that can help you correct any factual errors. And in addition to that, that it include any information you want me to consider for purposes of sentencing. The state's certainly going to include any information that they want me to consider for sentencing. And then I want to know, part of what that document will tell me is what you're accepting responsibility for. And I think that's important for me to know as I make findings and determinations on the consecutive or potential concurrent sentence of any of those things. I know there's an agreement. I don't expect sentencing to take a long time because your counsel and you have agreed as to what that sentence might be. But I think I need to give it some thought. So I am referring it to APMP for you to go through the pre-sentence investigation report process. I expect you to cooperate with them. I also expect that you will give them any information they want, any information you want me to consider, and if you need any assistance, please consult with your counsel as you prepare for that. Ms. Toombs, were you able to determine if the 6th or the 7th worked better for sentencing?
For the state, it would be the 6th at 4 p.m.
And does that work for you, Mr. Widdowson, Mr. Bichelle?
It does.
All right. So, Mr. Peterson, I'm going to set sentencing for May 6th. We're going to set that at 4 p.m. in person. I expect that the pre-sentence investigation report will be completed, and we will have it at that time. All right. I think that is everything. I'll have you go back over to the jail in anticipation of that sentencing. We'll make all of the paperwork here a part of the file, and that will be all for your proceedings today. Thank you. Mr. Bichelle, are you pretty close?
I'm ready, Your Honor. Probably.
Those all have an offense date stemming on or about July 9th of 2024. Those are the charges that if you plead to those, all of those sentences can run concurrent or consecutive with each other, and I would have final discretion as to what the sentence would be and also whether or not it runs concurrent or consecutive. I want to make sure you understand and appreciate the maximum risk you face if you plead guilty today. Do you understand that?
Yes.
All right. Mr. Bichelle has prepared, or he has a statement in advance of plea to go over with you. Did you read that with him?
Yes.
Did you understand it?
Yes.
And do you have any questions about it before we proceed?
No.
All right. Do you think that you are moving forward today thinking clearly?
Yes.
Okay. Are you under the are you taking any medication or other substances that might impair your ability to make a meaningful and thoughtful decision today?
No.
All right. And are you getting any treatment over at the Weber County Jail? Mental health treatment or taking any medication there?
No.
All right. You have met, though, with some doctors. And is there any concern that you don't, any concern from you about going forward today?
No.
All right. Mr. Bichelle and the state included in the statement in advance of plea an outline of the elements of the charges that you're charged with in this case, and then also facts about what happened on or about July 9th. The facts that are included there, are those facts all true?
They're true.
All right. Then I'll rely on that for a factual basis. Mr. Bichelle, do you want to supplement the record anymore in terms of your understanding as to whether or not he understands all of this and that you think he is entering a plea that is in his best interest and also that he knows what he's doing?
I would, Your Honor. Thank you. As the court and the state is aware, during the pendency of this case, we retained the services of Dr. Rick Hawks and Dr. Kai Mendenhall to come and provide some assessments and some evaluations. We did a psychological evaluation as well as intellectual personality and an autism spectrum disorder evaluation. And from that evaluation, there were some findings that I can get into here in a few moments after we take the plea. But during that and speaking with both doctors and my own interactions with Tyler over the pendency of this case, I have no concerns that he does not understand what's happening. I have no concerns in spending the time with him that entering this plea is in his best interest. And so I would wholeheartedly agree that he is prepared to go forward today with the full mental capacity necessary to enter a plea.
All right. Do you have any other questions here, Mr. Peterson?
No.
All right. Then I need you to sign that statement in advance of plea, acknowledging the rights that you have and the waivers you're giving the court prior to me taking your plea.
Okay, we're going to sign that page right there. Okay, then we're going to sign on the firearm restriction line right there. Oh, I printed that off weird, sorry. And we're going to sign one more right there.
So before you pass that to me, Deputy, Mr. Bichelle, will you look on page 1 under notification of the charges? It says under 7716.
Right.
Will you just...
We already did that.
You
We
did
changed
that,
that
okay.
today.
All right.
That's why I
Thank you.
screwed up. I was reading my own document. I didn't put the A in.
All right, and the attorneys have signed this. Mr. Peterson has now signed it. I'll affix my signature to it, incorporate the document into the record, including any oral statements that have been made here in court today. Mr. Peterson, then to count 1, child abuse, homicide. It's a reckless mental state. It's first-degree felony. How do you plead to that charge?
Guilty.
All right. And count 2, aggravated child abuse, intentionally or knowingly. How do you plead to that charge?
Guilty.
Count 3, aggravated child abuse, intentionally or knowingly. How do you plead to that charge?
Guilty.
And obstruction of justice, a second-degree felony. How do you plead to that charge?
Guilty.
All right. I will accept those pleas. Find that they've been knowingly and intentionally made, and accept those pleas. Now let's talk about the special provisions that apply under 7716A 103 and talk about where we go from here. Mr. Bichelle?
Thank you, Judge. As we discussed earlier, Tyler did have an evaluation done, both by a psychologist and autism spectrum disorder specialist. And that evaluation came back with the diagnostic impressions that Tyler suffers from autism spectrum disorder, from generalized anxiety disorder, persistent depressive disorder, and, as Dr. Hawks indicated, other specified personality disorders with avoidant independent features. Because of that, under the statute 7716A 103, the parties, meaning myself and the state, can stipulate that he did have a mental condition at the time of the offense and that he could benefit from supervision or treatment. And under this statute, as we went over, because of this entry of plea under it today, the court can postpone sentencing until such time as an evaluation is completed and a recommended treatment plan is provided to the court as well. Given that the parties have stipulated, and given that I have spoken with representatives at Weber Human Services, which is required under the statute to provide said evaluation and treatment plan, that can be done within the next 30 days. That being said, that 30-day time frame would facilitate Mr. Peterson being released from custody. So our request would be, Your Honor, pursuant to this statute, he be released with any terms and conditions that Your Honor places upon him, including, but again, obviously not limited to, his availability to appear at Weber Human Services, to participate in the assessments which they will complete, and then the treatment plan that Weber Human Services will put forth for him. And we can probably have a review on that in about 30 days, according to Weber Human Services, to be able then to facilitate a further review on how treatment is going. I will let the court know, and I believe the state will have something along these lines as well, that while his release, he will live with his mother and his other siblings who reside in that home. I understand that that is somewhat tenuous upon Tyler being a model citizen and a model son and brother while he is residing in his brother's home with his siblings, and the state can address that more. So, Your Honor, my request would be today that we set a hearing about 30 days down the road. I'll make sure that Tyler gets over to Weber Human Services ASAP. I know we discussed being released also on pretrial level. I've explained to him what pretrial level 4 would be, which I think is appropriate. Honestly, and in full candor to the court, and getting to know Tyler and getting to talk with other individuals who know him, he's very regimented. I don't think there'll be any problems with him attending his treatments, attending any scheduled appointments, and even going to pretrial services on the required dates while we get through the things we need to pending the full sentence on this case.
All right, thank you. Ms. Toombs?
Your Honor, just a tiny clarification for the record. The state does agree that based on Dr. Hawks and Dr. Mendenhall's evaluation that Mr. Peterson does suffer from a mental condition that would meet the definition as articulated in 7716A103. In terms of whether or not the defendant could benefit from supervision or treatment, the court has had an opportunity to review the mental health evaluation provided by defense counsel. And there are findings there, and I think the court can make those findings. I'm not necessarily stipulating to those findings. I do believe that the assessment will ferret out additional information and is appropriate and is required by the statute. In terms of the request by defense counsel to release Mr. Tyler Peterson today, the state agreed to submit on that issue. I will note that the court did ask us to make contact with the mother, and I will have Ms. Pitt give you the report and representations on that.
All right, thank you. Ms. Pitt?
We've spoken with the mother and the Milani, and they both agreed that yes, they would like him to come and stay with them at our home. Okay. But they don't have any concerns over that.
Okay. Any rules or regulations they wanted me to address for purposes of now? Okay.
I will just supplement with they will be in contact with our office if they have any concern. If any concern develops, then they will contact our office, and we will be back before the court to ask for reconsideration of that.
Would it be appropriate, and I'm sorry I didn't mention this earlier, to issue a pretrial criminal protective order? They are domestic violence related. First of all, they're family members, but they are representatives of the victim here. And I think pursuant to the pretrial criminal protective order, I could issue one of those that simply provides that there be no aggressive behavior, no domestic violence, and that then would be in the system, so that if there was any issue as far as law enforcement being called, they would have something that they could rely on instantly, in which they could detain Mr. Peterson. It would just be paragraph 1.
I don't have any problem with it.
Okay, I'll ask that the state prepare that and send that over. So, Mr. Peterson, there's a lot that needs to happen between now and when this case is over. This is an important first step, and I think that it has been some time coming. You've spent a lot of time in custody, and I'm recognizing, based on what I've been told and also the recommendations from what I'm hearing from your mom and your sister, that they are going to, they want you to come and be with them. But it is under some really strict terms and conditions, okay? And I want you to understand what those are. First of all, because you haven't been sentenced yet, I'm going to release you from the jail, but I'm going to release you to pretrial, which means I don't know that that will happen today. It might not happen until tomorrow. But if it does, either way, I'm fine with it. But the terms and conditions of your release are going to be these specific ones. First of all, no further violation of the law, whether federal, state, or local. 2, I am going to issue a pretrial criminal protective order on behalf of the immediate family members of Gavin, which means your mom and your sister, and I think that there's another sibling that lives there, and any minor children that might be in the house. And the protection order is that you commit no domestic violence, no threatening behavior, no assaultive behavior, nothing that would qualify as domestic violence. That means that if you are frustrated, well, you handle that in an appropriate way. I'm not necessarily worried about a specific risk. I just want you to understand what those terms are. If there's an argument and there are raised voices, well, then you need to extricate yourself or leave the situation and turn and walk away, okay? You don't even get in a loud argument with anybody. Second of all, you certainly don't put your hands on anybody in an aggressive or angry manner. And I want you to make sure that you are in control so that we don't have to revisit this portion of what I'm ordering you, okay? Pretrial also is going to supervise. That PLR-4 status means they're going to see you at the Weber County Jail twice. PLR-4 is only one time a week.
I thought we said 5.
Okay, PLR-5 status, they're going to see you twice a week based on their schedule. you're subject to all of the things that they may want you to do there. I am going to order that you have no controlled substances that aren't lawfully prescribed to you, and you are subject to testing for that. And I am just going to put you on a random basis that way. Again, not because there's a significant issue that's been brought to my attention, but because I don't want there to be any question that you are acting appropriately and you're only using prescriptions based on how the prescription is written. No creative use of any prescriptions, no alcohol, and no going in any places where alcohol is the chief item of sale. In addition to that, this isn't part for pretrial, but this is part of the terms and conditions of your release. You are to engage with adult probation and parole immediately to get started on a pre-sentence investigation report. I do want that information because eventually there is going to be a sentencing in this case. And I'll need that PSI. Second of all, I want you to engage with the Department of Health and Human Services through their appointee, which I assume will be the Weaver Human Services. I want you to go through an evaluation pursuant to this statute. And the department is ordered to provide a treatment assessment of the defendant and submit to the court treatment recommendations for the defendant. And then we will talk about when we need to have sentencing. I'll just refer, as it relates to all of that, to Section 7716A 103 sub 5. I think all of it is included in sub 5 for purposes of what they need to do. And then I also need a waiver of the time for sentencing.
We'll waive that, Your Honor.
And so, because you're not likely to be sentenced within 45 days. Do you have any questions of what I expect of you while you are, or when you are released?
No.
And are you going to abide by those restrictions?
Yes.
Okay. Then I also want you to stay in contact with Mr. Bichelle. Make sure that he knows where you are. If you are to spend the night somewhere other than at your mom's house, first of all, Mr. Bichelle needs to know why and where, and so does pretrial. And then they will send that information on to me. Lastly, you need to sign any releases that may be necessary over at Weaver Human Services. You make sure that those releases are signed over there so that they can send them to Mr. Bichelle and frankly to the state as well so that those can be transmitted to me. And I think that is all for purposes of today. Did we confirm April 24th at 2 p.m.? Does that work for everyone for a review of the treatment assessment?
Actually, Your Honor.
That's a Thursday.
Yes, that does work for the state as well.
Mr. Bichelle, does that work?
It does, Judge. I may have one clarification question as well, if you have.
Okay.
The order for Weaver Human Services, will that be sent from here? Oh, so they understand?
So you need to draft that. You draft it? Okay. All right. Ms. Bick will draft it.
Okay.
And it will be sent over directly. It will be made part of the file. You'll all have it, but she will transmit it as well. At least check in. I think that Dr. Mendenhall is aware enough of the situation that he can have a check-in with him immediately upon his release by tomorrow. But that evaluation itself may not be set up for another couple of days. You just be compliant with whatever they want. They say jump, you say how high, okay? All right, do you have any questions?
No.
All right. I think that is all on this matter, and I will see you, Mr. Peterson, with all of those things done on April 24th at 2 p.m., okay?
Okay.
All right, that will be all. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Honor.
All right,
May I go back to
and
minutes and just for a second?
we are in recess then.
Evan smelled horrible. He looked dirty, dingy. He looked terrible.
That was the last time Carlo Brewer saw his son, Evan. He describes driving to the South Wichita rental house that Stephen Bodine and Miranda Miller shared in March of last year. That's when he noticed an injury on his 3-year-old's nose. Evan eventually told him Daddy did it, and then he said he fell.
Looked at Miranda and she said, "What did you say?" And he said, "I mean, I followed." And out of nowhere, she made him go stand up against the front door and put his nose against the front door, and I could see him looking back at me the whole time, like he wanted me to take him with him.
He turned around and he took her pink dog collar, the leash, and was trying to wrap it back around her neck and did it again. And that was my first indication that something major was happening at that house.
He wasn't breathing. Bo came out and said, I need you to stay calm and I need you to do your CPR thing. And he's like, don't worry about the saliva or stuff that's coming out of Evan's mouth. I fall asleep at some point, and when I wake up, Evan's gone. I should have protected my son. I didn't do that. I failed.
Give us Evan! Give us Evan!
With tears streaming down his face and determination in his eyes, a father from Wichita, Kansas, set up a 24-hour vigil outside his ex-wife's home in 2017. Together with relatives, he clutched signs saying, "Give us Evan," and begged to see his 3-year-old son. What this desperate father didn't know at that moment, his precious little boy would never return home, and the truth about his fate would send shockwaves through America and bring even hardened detectives to their knees. The story I'm going to tell today will become one of the most shocking cases of child abuse you've ever heard about. I had to stop recording multiple times while preparing this material. That's how difficult it was to delve into the details of this case. In a simple house in Wichita, a real nightmare was unfolding, and the system, designed to protect the most vulnerable, failed its mission time and time again. This story isn't just a crime chronicle. It's a cry for help and a reminder. If you suspect a child is in danger, act immediately. Delay can cost a life. Friends, while you're immersing yourself in this tragic story, please write in the comments what time of day you're watching this video. This will help me understand when it's best to publish similar materials so they reach the maximum audience. And please subscribe to the channel. It's the only way to ensure important stories like this will be heard. On March 6, 2014, a little ray of sunshine appeared in the lives of Miranda Miller and Carlo Brewer, their son Evan. The boy was born into a family with a well-known name. His grandfather was Carl Brewer Sr., the former mayor of Wichita and a candidate for governor of Kansas. Few could have imagined what fate awaited a boy from such a respected family. Those who knew Evan described him as a mischievous, cheerful boy with an infectious laugh that could light up any room.
Evan. Evan. Evan.
He had boundless energy and imagination that made him the center of attention wherever he went. Every night, he carefully covered his stuffed animals with blankets, a small gesture that revealed his caring nature even at such a young age. His love for Ninja Turtles and Batman wasn't just casual. These characters were his heroes, appearing on everything from his bedding to his favorite toys. Evan's parents had separated early in his life, leaving him to live primarily with his mother, Miranda Miller. His father, Carlo Brewer, maintained limited contact during the boy's early years, though this changed in late 2016 when Carlo began taking a more active interest in his son's upbringing. The brief times they spent together showed the natural bond between father and son that would later drive Carlo's desperate fight to save Evan. At first, nothing indicated the horror that was to come. Miranda appeared to be a caring mother, attentive to her son's needs, and Evan developed into a happy, well-adjusted child despite his parents' separation.
Evan! Hi. Oh, don't you do it. Peekaboo. Ah. I see you. Peekaboo. I see you. I see you. Peekaboo, I see you. Evan, Mommy loves you. Mommy loves you. Mommy loves you. Oh, no, that's my finger. Ow. Not funny. Evan, hi, pretty. Oh, blow kisses. Blow kisses. Oh. Oh.
But in October 2016, everything changed when 41-year-old Stephen Bodine entered their lives. With his arrival, what had been a relatively stable home environment would quickly transform into something unrecognizable and deadly. Behind his ordinary appearance lurked a cruel nature, fueled by constant methamphetamine use. His past was marked by a series of violent relationships with women. But for Miranda, who by that time had sunk into drug addiction herself, he seemed like the perfect partner. With stunning speed, Bodine moved in with Miranda and Evan, establishing his strict rules in the house. What began as a romantic relationship quickly turned into a nightmare of control and violence. Within a few weeks, Stephen began regularly beating Miranda, isolating her from friends and family. But the true object of his sadistic nature was 3-year-old Evan. The little boy, in Bodine's opinion, was spoiled and needed real male upbringing. With the approval of Miranda, who by that time was completely under his influence, Stephen established a regime of terror in the house. The child must earn everything: food, clothes, even the right to leave the room. That was his sophisticated method of upbringing. These weren't just words. Bodine installed surveillance cameras in the house, not for security, but to continuously monitor Evan, making sure he didn't break his draconian rules. Few knew that these cameras would later capture more than 16,000 photographs and videos, which would become evidence against him. The home, that should have been a refuge for the little boy, turned into a torture chamber where his every movement was controlled and the slightest violation of rules led to cruel punishments. By February 2017, Carlo Brewer began noticing troubling signs when spending time with his son. Evan's speech regressed. He started wetting his pants again, although he had previously been successfully potty trained. Even more alarming, unexplained bruises began appearing on the boy's body.
We'd see bruises on him, and Sarah would question it, and I would question if it was just a toddler getting bruises. But when we started putting everything together, his behavior and whatnot, then that's when I really began to question if there was abuse going on in that home.
Your nose, could you describe for the jury where on Evan's nose exactly that injury was?
From what I could see, it seemed like there was a gash like right above the nose, and it like scraped down his nose.
And for the record, you're indicating in between the eyes down to the tip of your nose was an injury. And you're nodding your head, is that a yes?
Yes.
As investigators would later discover, these warning signs were just the tip of a horrifying iceberg. Behind the closed doors of that ordinary-looking house, unimaginable cruelty was unfolding day after day. Events took a frightening turn when one day Evan tried to strangle one of his stepbrothers living at his father's house with a pink dog leash. This behavior was so uncharacteristic for the gentle, loving boy that Carlo immediately understood. something terrible was happening to his son in his mother's home. Carlos' first reaction was reasonable. He approached Miranda, hoping for an open dialogue. His question about whether Stephen might be the cause of Evan's bruises received a shocking answer. Carlo was forbidden to see his son until Miranda and Stephen decided otherwise. Moreover, she declared her intention to change the boy's last name. This became the beginning of a father's desperate struggle to save his child. Carlo appealed to all possible authorities, police, social services, courts.
Doing everything I could, making reports to the police, trying to get welfare checks done. I was calling DCF. I was doing anything I could.
He was so desperate that, together with relatives, he organized protests in front of Miranda's house, sitting in lawn chairs with signs reading, "Give us Evan," hoping this would make Miranda come out and talk. But the child protection system failed its mission time and time again. Police would come, but no one would open the door. Social services received alarm signals, but didn't take sufficient measures. Judges made decisions, but they weren't enforced. Behind closed doors, the horror only intensified. What was happening to Evan in that house can only be described as torture. Have you ever witnessed such cruel treatment of a child that it made you question humanity? These were exactly the feelings experienced by everyone who later saw the evidence in this case. Evan was forced to stand in a corner for hours, with his hands behind his back. Any movement resulted in a blow, and if the boy didn't apologize properly, the punishment escalated to beatings, kicks, or being thrown across the room. The boy was so frightened that he stopped using the toilet, preferring to wet his pants and sit in his own waste, rather than risk encountering Stephen in the hallway. With each day, the tortures became more sophisticated. In mid-February 2017, when Evan accidentally spilled juice on the carpet, Stephen made him kneel on scattered salt for 2 hours. When the boy began crying from pain, Bodine increased the punishment by forcing him to rest his palms on the salt. By evening, the tender knees and palms of the 3-year-old child were covered with bleeding wounds. In early March, Evan caught a cold and was coughing at night. Instead of giving him medicine, Stephen punished him for the noise by making him drink a mixture of vinegar and chili pepper. When the boy began choking and vomited, Bodine threw his face into his own vomit, shouting, "You'll eat this until you learn to be quiet." One of the most shocking punishments occurred when Evan refused to apologize to Stephen. Bodine declared that the boy needed to be treated like a dog to learn his lesson. He forced the naked 3-year-old child to stand in a cold basement for 6 hours. Miranda, following his instructions, put a belt around Evan's neck with a chain attached to it and a heavy weight at the end. "Dogs wear collars," Stephen mocked, jerking the chain so that the boy fell. "Dogs don't wear clothes. Dogs don't talk. They bark." He forced Evan to bark on command, and if the child didn't do it loudly or quickly enough, a blow with the heavy belt buckle followed to his back. Evan's small body was covered with bruises and scars in various stages of healing, evidence that such tortures were regular. All night, Stephen watched the child through the camera, making sure he didn't move. When he finally fell asleep from exhaustion, the tormented boy managed to free himself. In the morning, Bodine became furious when he discovered Evan upstairs, eating breakfast in clothes in front of the television. According to Miranda, he beat him within an inch of his life for this disobedience. On March 12, 2017, cameras captured an especially cruel scene, a naked Evan with a leather belt around his neck, tied to a water pipe in the basement. His tiny legs trembled from tension and cold. The temperature in the unheated basement barely exceeded 41 degrees. Stephen methodically poured ice water from a garden hose on the shivering child, mocking, "You like bathing, right?" The video shows Evan losing consciousness from cold and shock. Bodine roughly slaps his cheeks, bringing him back to consciousness, only to continue the torture. By the end of the session, the boy's lips had turned blue, and his skin was covered with spots, early signs of hypothermia. In April, Stephen developed an especially perverted form of discipline. he equipped in the basement what he called a cage, a space between wooden pallets, where he locked Evan for the night, often without a blanket or pillow. In this cramped space, the child couldn't even straighten up. By morning, his limbs were so numb that he couldn't stand up on his own, for which, of course, he was punished again. Stephen also experimented with food tortures. He added a tablespoon of salt to Evan's food, which is a toxic dose for a small child. When the boy started vomiting, Bodine forced him to eat his own vomit. Another time, he made the child drink an entire bottle of soy sauce, containing a lethal amount of sodium for a 3-year-old. After this, Evan suffered from dehydration, headaches, and confusion for several days. Especially cruel was the experiment with a stool. Stephen put Evan on a wobbly stool and wrapped an electrical wire around his neck, tying the other end to a ceiling beam. He threatened to kick the stool out if the boy couldn't stand still. Evan, exhausted from hunger and illness, stood like this for more than an hour, literally balancing between life and death. In early May 2017, the videos show a sharp deterioration in Evan's condition. The boy no longer looked just frightened, he appeared seriously ill. His eyes were sunken and feverishly bright. His skin had taken on a gray tone. The lively and energetic child had become a shadow of his former self. But even in this condition, Stephen showed no compassion. If this story has touched you as deeply as it has touched me, please share this video. One repost can raise awareness and possibly save the life of another child in danger. Throughout this nightmare, Carlo managed to see his son only twice, and each of these meetings only strengthened his concerns. The first meeting occurred in March 2017, when Carlo and a colleague spontaneously stopped by Miranda's house, and she, to their surprise, opened the door. Evan was with her, and Carlo immediately noticed a deep cut running across the boy's forehead down to the tip of his nose. When Carlo asked what happened, Evan quietly replied, "Daddy did it," referring to Stephen. Miranda sharply interrupted him, "What did you say?" And the frightened boy immediately changed his story, saying he just fell. Punishment followed immediately. Miranda made Evan stand facing the wall, his nose touching it, with his hands behind his back. But even in this humiliating position, the boy cast a glance at his father, which Carlo later described as a silent plea. "Please, take me away from here." The second and last meeting took place in April 2017. Driving past Miranda's house, Carlo noticed her and Evan outside and stopped. The boy's condition was shocking, dirty, with a terrible smell. He looked abandoned and miserable. Seeing his father, Evan rushed to his car, begging to take him home. Miranda refused, but surprisingly, promised that the boy could see his father the next day. The hope turned out to be false. All of Carlo's attempts to contact her the next day remained unanswered. This was the last opportunity to save Evan. The boy, who had only a few weeks to live, seemed to know this, desperately clinging to the possibility of escape from the house that had turned into a torture chamber. On May 4, 2017, Carlo finally received a court protection order, prohibiting Stephen from approaching Evan. On July 6th, the court granted him full custody of his son. But it was already too late. No one could find either Miranda or Evan. Neighbors reported they hadn't seen the boy for more than a month. The truth turned out to be much more horrifying than anyone could have imagined. Evan was already dead. Have you ever wondered what happens in the mind of a child who faces systematic abuse with no escape? As Evan entered his final days, his small body had already endured more suffering than most adults experience in a lifetime. In 27 years of police work, I thought I'd seen the darkest depths of human cruelty, the detective who led this case later said, his voice breaking.
Another innocent child in our city has been taken from us.
But when I reviewed the materials of this case, I had to leave the room every few minutes. The methodical, calculated torture of this innocent child made me question everything I thought I knew about human nature. According to Miranda's testimony, which she later gave in court, the last days of Evan's life were filled with unimaginable suffering. She said the boy's death occurred between May 18th and 22nd, 2017, although she couldn't specify the exact date, being in a drug-induced haze during that period. The chronology of the last 72 hours of Evan's life, reconstructed by investigators based on testimony and video recordings, paints a picture of methodical, almost ritual cruelty that inevitably led to a tragic end. May 17th morning, when Miranda tried to wake Evan, he couldn't get up after a night spent in the cage between wooden pallets. His little legs were completely numb, and fresh bruises were visible on his body. Instead of helping the child, Stephen accused him of faking and, as punishment, made him stand against the wall for 4 hours without a break. Exhausted, hungry, and weakened, Evan at some point lost his balance and fell, hitting his head on the concrete basement floor. On one of the video recordings seized by investigators, blood is clearly visible on the boy's temple, and his glazed, disoriented gaze, signs of a concussion. Instead of medical help, Stephen forced the bloodied child to return to the wall. May 17th, by evening, Evan's condition had worsened. He complained of headaches and was nauseous, typical symptoms of a head injury. Miranda, concerned about his condition but too intimidated to seek help, gave Evan a triple dose of Benadryl to calm him down. The overdose of the antihistamine in a 3-year-old child caused a severe reaction. Video recordings show Evan losing orientation, bumping into walls, his speech becoming slurred. Stephen, instead of showing concern, filmed this on his phone, commenting, "Look, he's like a drunk." At some point, he forced the disoriented boy to walk in a straight line, as if testing for drunkenness, laughing at his unsuccessful attempts. May 18th, the next morning, Evan refused food, a natural consequence of salt poisoning, medication, and concussion. In response, Stephen devised a new test, which he called the Lesson of Truth. He put Evan on a wobbly stool in the center of the room and constructed an improvised noose from an electrical wire, which he placed around the boy's neck. The other end of the wire was attached to the ceiling beam in such a way that if the stool tipped over, the child could be seriously injured or even die. "If you don't eat everything to the last crumb, I'll kick out the stool and you'll understand what real pain means," Stephen threatened, offering the boy a bowl of deliberately over-salted oatmeal. Trembling from fear and weakness, Evan tried to eat, but his body refused to accept the toxic amount of salt. He vomited right into the bowl. Instead of stopping the torture, Stephen hit him on the back of the head and yelled, "Eat this. All of it. Including what you just added, you dog." Under threat of death, Evan tried to eat his own vomit mixed with salty porridge, choking and crying. This horrific feeding continued for almost an hour, until the child lost consciousness. Only then did Stephen remove the noose and throw the boy to the floor. By evening that day, Evan was so weak that he couldn't speak. He lay in a corner, curled up in a ball, quietly moaning in pain. His lips were cracked from dehydration, and a red line from the wire was visible around his neck. According to Miranda, Stephen even forbade her from giving the boy water. Let him understand what happens to disobedient children. May 19th, the fatal day, in the morning, Evan could no longer stand up. Stephen accused him of pretending and, as records show, hung the boy by his hands from a ceiling beam so that his feet barely touched the floor. In this agonizing position, the child spent almost an hour, after which his arms began turning blue from restricted blood circulation. Even after Stephen took him down, Evan couldn't move his fingers. His condition was critical. The boy had likely not eaten or drunk anything in the past 24 hours. He had dangerous levels of Benadryl and salt in his body, and was suffering from the effects of multiple injuries. That same day, Stephen began his final punishment. He forced Evan to stand in the corner of the room, forbidding him to move or sit down. After some time, the exhausted child lost consciousness and collapsed to the floor. Stephen carried the unconscious Evan to the bathroom. Traces on the floor, later discovered by forensic experts, showed that he didn't carry, but dragged the child by his leg, leaving a bloody trail on the floor. In the bathroom, Stephen locked the door, not allowing Miranda to enter. What exactly happened behind that door, one can only guess, but Stephen's shouts, "Breathe, you bastard," were heard even in the kitchen. According to expert estimates, death occurred around this time. The forensic examination later established that Stephen likely tried to revive Evan using his favorite method, holding the child's head under ice water, then sharply pulling it out, mimicking a resuscitation procedure. This same sadistic method, as evidence showed, he had previously used on his own daughter. Stephen brought Evan's lifeless body out of the bathroom. His hair was wet, his skin had taken on a bluish tint, and pinkish fluid was seeping from his ears, a sign of traumatic brain injury. On the video recording, which later became one of the key pieces of evidence, he can be seen hitting the already dead child on the cheeks, then throwing him to the floor, saying, "He's pretending, always pretending." After Evan's death, Stephen acted with frightening methodicalness. Unlike someone in panic or grief, he approached the concealment of the murder with calculated precision. He didn't attempt to dispose of the body elsewhere or report the child missing. Instead, he immediately began planning to hide the evidence in plain sight, within their own home. His cold, calculating behavior during these moments was especially disturbing. He treated Evan's remains with the same detached efficiency as he had treated the living child, showing no more emotion over concealing a murder than he had shown while inflicting the abuse that led to it. On May 20th, less than 24 hours after Evan's death, Stephen went to Lowe's hardware store for materials. The salesperson later recalled that Bodine even joked, "We're going to build a castle for a princess," a horrifying irony, given the true purpose of the purchases. Back home, Stephen assembled a wooden frame measuring 24 by 36 inches and attached wheels to it, a detail indicating that he planned to be able to move his gruesome creation. Before placing the body in the frame, Stephen positioned Evan in a fetal position and wrapped him in several layers of Ninja Turtles bedding, the boys' favorite characters. This detail later especially shocked the jurors. A child, who had been subjected to such torture, was buried with his favorite characters. The body was wrapped in towels on top of the bedding and bound with duct tape. The process of pouring concrete took several hours. Stephen worked methodically, layer by layer, as if performing ordinary construction work. By the evening of May 21st, the work was complete. The concrete sarcophagus containing the body of 3-year-old Evan was placed in the laundry room, covered with a carpet and stacked with toolboxes. Do you understand how cold-blooded one must be to live for weeks, for months, just feet away from the body of a child you killed? The prosecutor would later say at the trial, "What level of inhumanity is needed to create a concrete tomb for a 3-year-old and then eat, sleep, watch TV, as if nothing happened?" Over the following months, Miranda and Stephen continued to live in the house, just a few steps away from the homemade grave. They masked the smell of decomposition with air fresheners. When asked about Evan's whereabouts, they replied that the boy had gone to relatives or had been adopted. Particularly revealing was an incident that occurred on August 11, 2017. Carlo was driving by the house, trying to get information about his son's whereabouts. Stephen ran out of the house with an axe, threatening Carlo and damaging his car's tire. "Where is my son?" Carlo shouted. "Get away from my son," Stephen threatened in response, waving the axe.
Thank you for coming and knock. Again.
Where's my son? Where is my son?
Get the fuck off my
Where's
property.
my son? Look, I can't go. The police will come. Look.
Good.
Look.
Not your property. You'll be right here on my property.
Property. This isn't your property. I just talked to Call 911.
The horrifying irony was that at the moment of this confrontation, Evan's body had already been in the concrete grave for almost 3 months, just a few feet away from them. On August 30th, 2017, Miranda and Stephen were finally arrested in Wichita but Evan wasn't with them. Police conducted several thorough searches of the house, trying to find any traces of the boy, but without success. Only on September 2, 2017, almost 4 months after the presumed date of Evan's death, the landlord made the horrifying discovery. While cleaning the laundry room, he noticed a strange concrete structure covered with a carpet.
I'm just kind of freaking out because it seemed like a little coffin to me.
A strange smell emanating from it raised his suspicions. Fearing the worst, the landlord purchased a sledgehammer and began breaking the concrete.
Needed to know what was in there, so I went to Harbor Freight. I bought a sledgehammer and came back, and I was just praying to God that Evan wasn't in there.
When he smelled the intensified odor of decomposition, he immediately called the police. His worst fears were confirmed. Inside the concrete block was the body of little Evan. "I've seen a lot of horrible things in my career," said the officer who first arrived at the scene. "But when I saw this little boy, wrapped in his favorite Ninja Turtles bedding, something broke inside me. I went out, sat in my car, and cried like a child." The autopsy revealed a horrifying picture. Due to the degree of decomposition, the medical examiner couldn't determine the exact cause of death, but found signs of blunt force trauma to the head, fractures of 3 ribs at different stages of healing, brain swelling, high concentration of salt in the stomach, hemorrhages in the eyeballs, and Benadryl in the body tissues. But the most shocking discovery was made later. Investigators found thousands of photos and videos made by home surveillance cameras. The material shocked even seasoned police officers. More than 16,000 photos and videos documented systematic abuse of the child. During the investigation, it was revealed that the Kansas Department for Children and Families DCF had received 6 separate reports of abuse against Evan between July 2016 and May 2017. Only 3 were investigated, and none were substantiated. In the last 2 months of the boy's life, there were reports that Stephen had choked him until he lost consciousness, but the social worker never even saw the child in person. The system not only failed Evan, the Brewer family lawyer would later say, it opened the door to his killer. After the shocking discovery of the body, Stephen Bodine was charged with first-degree murder, aggravated kidnapping, child abuse, and endangering a child's welfare. Miranda Miller also faced serious charges, but agreed to testify against Stephen in exchange for a reduced sentence. The trial, which began in October 2018, shocked all of America. For 6 days, jurors reviewed more than 550 pieces of evidence, including fragments of the concrete tomb and torture videos. Prosecutors and jurors couldn't hold back tears. While viewing the materials, horrifying details emerged one after another. The videos clearly showed systematic abuse of the child.
He's standing there clad with a chain around his neck.
Does he have any clothes on during the whole video that you see?
No.
So they ran their testing on the brain, the tissue that we were able to recover, and that showed the presence of diphenhydramine. Diphenhydramine is Benadryl.
Stephen's daughter, Samantha Johnson, testified about similar tortures that he had subjected her to, forced her to eat when she was vomiting, nearly drowned her in the bathtub, and then performed CPR.
It's not about me, it's about Evan, and I went through some horrible things, but I survived and Evan didn't, and this is my chance to tell Evan's story.
Evan's death was like giving other children life, because it's going to save other people.
We fought the fight good, and we won't stop. We will not stop.
Miranda's attempts to present herself as a victim were refuted by the Brewer family lawyer.
Because she had every opportunity to give Evan to me, give him to my sisters, anyone. Anyone would have taken Evan.
Miranda Miller knows very well that she was never a hostage in that house. And she was in this courthouse on May 4th of 2017 while Evan was still alive. And I offered her at that time, I got her out of the seat away from Bodine and took her down in the jury room and talked to her and told her I could help her right then.
She had every opportunity to give Evan to myself or any other family member, but she chose not to and participated in his abuse as well.
The jury needed just 1 hour to reach a verdict.
Evan Brewer wouldn't break. His mom broke, but Evan was strong-willed. He wouldn't bend to the rules of the house. And ultimately, he died because of that.
The evidence will show that what Mr. Bodine did was help Miranda Miller hide the body after he'd passed away.
On October 23, 2018, Stephen Bodine was found guilty on all counts. On December 17th, Judge Steve Turns sentenced him to 109 years in prison without the possibility of parole, calling his actions disgusting, cowardly, and monstrous.
The verdict reads as follows. State of Kansas versus Stephen M. Bodine, case number 17-CR2630 and 17-CR3476. We, the jury, find the defendant guilty of murder in the first-degree abuse. We, the jury, find the defendant guilty of abuse of a child. We, the jury, find the defendant guilty of murder in the first-degree endangerment. We, the jury, find the defendant guilty of aggravated endangerment of a child. We, the jury, find the defendant guilty of aggravated kidnapping interference. We, the jury, find the defendant guilty of aggravated kidnapping terrorize. We, the jury, find the defendant guilty of aggravated assault. We, the jury, find the defendant guilty of criminal damage to property. Dated today, October 24, 2018, signed by presiding juror.
Mr. Smith, was that the verdict of the jury?
Yes, Your Honor.
Thank you.
Miranda Miller received 25 years in prison. In her final statement, she admitted, "I failed as a mother. I should have called the police when the abuse first started."
I should have done more to protect my son and myself. I should have called the police when the abuse first started. These are the choices and the decisions that I must live with.
Evan's tragic death was not in vain. It sparked a wave of reforms in the Kansas child protection system. DCF acknowledged its mistakes, fired several employees, and revised its protocols for responding to reports of child abuse. Carlo Brewer became an active advocate for children's rights. At the trial, he uttered a phrase that stunned everyone present. He couldn't imagine monsters in the closet or under the bed like other children. He had real monsters.
Evan was a beautiful boy. He was just like any other child, you know, except for he didn't get to have the imagination like the other children, you know, where they might think there's monsters in their closets or under their bed. He had real monsters.
If you notice unexplained bruises on a child, sudden changes in behavior, or regression in skills they've already mastered, don't stay silent. If a child is afraid to go home or mentions frightening punishments, don't dismiss it as childish fantasies. Sometimes one call to Child Protective Services can save a life. Many warning signs in Evan's case were noticed. Many people tried to intervene, but the child protection system failed and an innocent child's life was lost. If Evan were alive today, he would be about 11 years old. We'll never know what his favorite subject in school might have been. We'll never see what talents he might have developed or what dreams he might have pursued. He was robbed not just of his life, but of all the possibilities it held. Instead of watching him grow, we can only remember him and fight to ensure that no child ever experiences the nightmare he went through. Write in the comments what signs of child abuse you know and what to look out for. Perhaps your observation will someday save someone's life. I just wanted to say a big thank you to everyone who watched this video all the way through. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this case in the comments, and please don't forget to subscribe to my channel. I'd also like to send a special thank you to everyone who has donated to support my channel. Your support means the world to me and gives me the motivation to keep making new and interesting investigations for you, my wonderful viewers. Thank you all so much.